Okay, hello everybody. We're live. Good to talk to you guys again. Um, we got a really cool film to talk about. We're talking about Christopher Nolan's Interstellar, which came out in 2014. It was written and directed by Christopher Nolan and also written by his brother. This is a very interesting project in general. Um, so this film sort of started as a project written by his brother and then actually was supposed to be directed by Steven Spielberg in like 2007. And then it sat in development for, basically 7 years. And then finally, there was like some switches of which production company it was going to be under. And so then that led to Christopher Nolan agreeing to direct the film, and then obviously it became a Nolan film. And now we got this film. So so had you ever when this film came out, had you heard about it or seen anything about it? Do you recall when it came out?
Yeah, I remember when it came out. I knew a lot of people who went and saw it multiple times. They were raving about it. There was one guy at work who was just like, "Oh no, you got to see it. You got to see it. It's the greatest space movie ever, and it's so good. It's gonna blow your mind. You're gonna have to watch it more than once." And I was just like, "Yeah, I don't think I'll see it now."
Yeah.
It's like the Inception thing. Everyone was telling me to see it, so I was just like, I can wait. But I was like, I like space movies, obviously. Like, I'm a big sci-fi nerd. I love all of that stuff. But it didn't, at the time, like, I didn't feel like I needed to see it necessarily. I feel like it's more relevant now, especially with everything going on. I think it could definitely be, it kind of like how War of the Worlds is,
Yes.
good to watch during like maybe not good to watch during a pandemic, but you know what I mean. It can definitely be related to whatever is going on now. But it kind of just was one of the movies where I was like, yeah, I'll see it eventually. That was around the time where I was kind of fading away from like Christopher Nolan movies, because I kind of felt like I saw so many of them at once and in a short period of time, and I was still on like my Batman kick. I think that might have been around the time when I was watching every Batman movie ever like that had been made.
Nice.
But yeah, and I think I had also just watched True Detective, the first season as well. So I was kind of on a McConaughey kick, but I didn't really, again, it's I can't really sit through long movies anymore in theaters. So I just kind of was like, yeah, I'll see it eventually when it's streaming and things like that. But
this is definitely a long one. I like that you brought up McConaughey, because this is kind of like the peak of him, pretty much.
Yeah, and he was so phenomenal in it. He was really, really great. I really appreciated his performance in it, because he wasn't like that normal McConaughey that we know. That
he can be a little zany at times.
He can be, and he can be a little too. Yeah, you're rough around the edges kind of a character. But no, this is just kind of like a regular guy too that I like. But he's also very smart, and he's very good at what he does. And he didn't really. I like some of his conversations with John Lithgow's character, his father-in-law, where he was like, because I read that John Lithgow's character is kind of like us. Is kind of like a millennial, basically, now in his like 60s or 70s. But he has this line to Matthew McConaughey. He was like, you were either born 40 years too late or 40 years too early. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, I feel like that sometimes.
Yeah, I really like that. Because there's a lot of like kind of thematic stuff, because he talks to that character about how he's contemplating what to do, right? Mm-hmm. If he should do this thing or not. So let's just talk about the cast real quick. This is a great cast. So as we talk about, the protagonist, the lead, is Matthew McConaughey, who plays Cooper. This guy who's sort of basically, in the past, he was a NASA astronaut, pretty much, or at least in training, but didn't work out at the time. Then there's Murph. So Murph is played by, the young version of her is Mackenzie Foy, who's a really cool actress. And then the older version is Jessica Chastain. And then, so that's his Cooper's daughter. And then Cooper's son is Tom, who's played by Timothy Chalamet as the young version. And then Casey Affleck as the older version. And then there's Professor Brand, played by Michael Caine, who's in like almost every single Nolan movie.
Yep, and he's always good. He's always good.
He is always good. Yeah, he always brings some kind of mentorly. He's usually the mentor.
Yeah, he kind of passed over into those like Anthony Hopkins roles where it's like only nicer, only like the nicer version. Because I feel like whenever Anthony Hopkins plays like a mentor kind of character, he's always there's always that wonder, well, is he evil? Is he actually bad? Because he's good at doing both. And but Michael Caine always just seems like the one you can trust and the one that you want to forgive if he fucks up. Like I love him in oh god, I love this movie. The Magicians with Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale.
Yeah, The Prestige.
The Prestige. Like I love his character in The Prestige. Very understated, very but there and very good. And of course he's Alfred and he's wonderful. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So Anne Hathaway is also in this. She's, I think, Amelia Brand, so like Professor Brand's daughter. And then the astronauts are like Brand, Doyle, Romley. And then there's a special cameo we'll get to when it pops up. That's really... I
didn't know that, honestly. This movie's been out for like 7 years or something like that.
Yes. I didn't either.
I had no idea
like when it came out. Like it I think there was a lot of people who legitimately were like, what? Like I know I did. And that's something I think he's kind of doing that now a lot, because that actually happened in another movie of his, where I'm like, oh, that person's in this movie, He does such a good job of keeping things under wraps that, they become like a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, and I was worried that when he did pop up, when I realized who it was, that I was like, oh, he's probably gonna like steal the show, because sometimes he can be a little bit of a scene stealer. But he wasn't. I thought I think he did a very good job of being a supporting character, which is not something that's in his MO. Like he is a leading man. And I think he did a very good job of just being a character I'd never seen him play before. Like never. Yeah. And it was very good.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other, so Doyle is Wes Bentley. And then Romley is this guy, David Gyasi. So yeah, that's the cast. And so just to get into the plot. So the film opens up with this really cool, so it's like there's this bookshelf, right? And there's really interesting kind of, I really like that this is how it starts, because, again, it's very, I remember thinking of when I saw that, I was like, this is very kind of foreboding. I feel like this has some meaning. I don't know what it is yet, but it had some meaning.
But it's going to matter.
Cool. And like you see dust kind of falling, and it's all really very, very cinematic, very beautiful. And then we see these interviews with this old woman, and she's talking about her life on a farm. And then we kind of get this intercutting with this kind of dream sequence of something of Cooper on a flight in this sort of the futuristic space shuttle, pretty much. And and then you can tell it just didn't go well, and it crashed, and he just can't get over it. And then, his daughter Murph keeps talking about this ghost. She calls it a ghost leaving signs for them. And then, so we see like this is the future. So for what I understand, this is supposed to be like 2067 is the year for this movie. And then we kind of get more stuff about this family. So again, there's two kids, Murph and Tom. Their mother is dead. She's no longer around. And then he talks about they have this fun conversation about why she's named Murph, because she's named after Murphy's Law, which is, anything that can happen will happen. Mm-hmm. Although we see it as like something bad. Right.
Generally, the connotation is, oh, great. This is just crap that's happening. But it can be good too, and nobody looks at it like that.
Yeah, exactly. So then they're driving around. They see this drone flying, right? This old military drone, like basically from our time. And then there's this fun scene where they chase after it, and he reprograms it so that he can. What's his name? Cooper reprograms it so that he can use it for farming.
Yep.
And this, again, gives us more of an idea of what the world is like. So the world has been encompassed in another dust bowl, pretty much. And the ability for us to produce food to basically feed humanity has declined. So a lot of people have to become farmers. And so Cooper is a guy who was like an engineer, and then they sent him onto a farm, you know? So it's a little dystopian, right? It's pretty dystopian, I'd say, actually.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting that like he was someone who was involved with flight, you know, kind of like this test pilot kind of a guy, and you know, someone who loves science and, you know, obviously reaching for like the stars and things like that. And then he's grounded in the most metaphorical way possible, which is no, now you're going to be in the dirt. Like you're as far from the stars as humanly possible.
Yeah. It's pretty rough, and then it gets even rougher as we're going to see in this later scene. But one of the things I liked when he talked about taking over the drone, he was like, yeah, it needs to be repurposed. It needs to adapt. It needs to adapt to our time, which I thought was interesting, sort of, you know, kind of comment on technology, how, you know, technology needs to serve people, not just, you know, do whatever. Like this was a war machine that he's going to turn into something to feed people. So I like that. And then we get this scene where Cooper meets with, it's like a parent-teacher conference kind of thing.
Oh, this scene pissed me off.
This scene was like, yeah, this scene was another one where I was like, what? So he basically, at this point, well, they say, okay, your son, he's going to be a farmer, blah, blah, blah. So for Murph, you know, so for Murph, they had a problem because she brought in this book from basically, again, from our time, which had some stuff about the moon landing. And they were like, oh, well, the moon landing was fake. They just openly said it. These are the teachers of a school. And they said, yeah, the moon landing was fake. That was just a fraud perpetuated by the government to bankrupt the Russians.
It was all propaganda, which is like, I feel like he's so insulted by that. I love how shocked he is. And it kind of gives you a perspective. Oh, well, when he was in school, they were still teaching that obviously the moon landing was real, and that obviously like space exploration was still a thing. And then just one generation removed, all of that has been reversed.
So just think about this. So we watched First Man, you know, a couple months ago, I think at this point. Just think about all the things that happened to all these people, this generation of people, right? Who did that, who actually went to the moon, how much they sacrificed, how many people died, how many people basically kind of had their lives ruined. But we all collectively as a society decided we're going to do this. Mm-hmm. How crazy it would be to just say, oh, it was fake. Yeah.
I think there's some places that definitely would teach that, honestly. I think there's still some pockets of communities that would love to be able to teach certain things like that in schools and have it be complete and total nonsense, in my opinion. So what are you teaching them? Like, that's my question, is just like, what if your curriculum is this backwards just in regards to the moon landing, what else is going on in this new society and in this particular school in general? I think it's a very scary idea, personally.
It's very scary because, like, I think the answer to that question is that basically they're teaching people not to think critically. They're teaching people to just basically be a drone. You are a worker bee, and your job is to, you know, just to go and farm. Just like the brother. The brother's like, you're going to be a farmer, period, end of story. That's it. You have no choice. You have no autonomy. You don't really get to decide for yourself. Society decides for you, and you are told what to do.
And I feel like in some ways, like, some of that isn't necessarily untrue of today. You know, we have different, you know, electives and different kinds of, like, besides just like, you know, taking math, science, and, you know, English classes, you have like the other ones in between. Like, I mean, I don't know if any schools still do wood shop or anything like that, or have mechanic classes or anything like that, where you can go to like a college and audit another class. So at least you have those options of knowing, oh, well, maybe I would like to do something in a trade field or something like that. Or no, I want to be a doctor, so I'm going to take more science classes and biology classes and all this other stuff. But in this world, in this new future, it's no, you have two options.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't need doctors anymore, because we're just letting people die because now the most important thing to figure out is how to make more food, basically.
Yeah. I mean, the scary thing too to me about this idea is that we're probably closer to that being possible than we'd ever want to think, right?
Yeah.
To them just like spitting out insane propaganda into people's heads.
Yeah.
I mean, for us that's shocking, but you know, I don't know, like it's crazy. But.
Yeah, but for some societies, it might be a little more closer to home. You know, like your heads of state are considered also like they have pictures of them in their home right next to like a deity. You know, like, and there's still homes like that have a picture of whoever the president of the United States is right next to their freaking crucifix, right next to their altar where they pray every day. They even have it in like their kitchens or their dining rooms, as if like that leader is an extension of your own family, if not the leader of your family. And it's kind of a creepy idea at the same time.
It is creepy. But yeah, that's the state of humanity in Interstellar. It's pretty bad, and it's getting worse. So then, like, meanwhile, on Cooper's farm, a bunch of strange things start happening. Like a whole bunch of the machines that do the tilling and the sowing of the farm start working, and then he has to basically a bunch of anomalies start happening, and he doesn't know why, and like books start falling on the ground in his library. And so he's trying to figure out what's going on. And then they get hit with another dust bolt, and then the dust starts lining up in this kind of sequential order of lines. And so then Murph and Cooper are kind of like trying to figure out what it is. And then I forget the name of the character, but John Lithgow, he has this great line. He's like, yeah, so, you guys want to come to dinner after just done praying to this dirt or whatever. It's really...
After that praying in the dirt, basically, yeah.
Yeah, it was really funny.
Yeah, because he doesn't really get it. Like, I feel like John Lithgow's character, if he is, like, part of the millennial generation, he's kind of just like, yeah, this is pointless.
Yeah. Yeah. He's just there for moral support,
Pretty much.
In this whole movie. And he's great. So they figured it out. They figured out that, Murph thought it was, like, Morse code, but Cooper figured out it's like a binary, and it's coordinates. It's location coordinates. And they follow them. And Murph, again, Murph is very rebellious, right? This situation with the teachers she got into trouble with. She, didn't want to listen to their BS about the moon landing being fake. So that got her into trouble. Here, she's like, Cooper's like, you can't come with me. But then she snuck into the car and came with him anyway. So then they go to this facility, right? And then they're obviously not supposed to be there. And then something happens, which is very interesting. Something goes after them and attacks them and like kind of stuns Cooper. And then you can tell it kind of takes Murph away. And then it turns out it's this like really interesting robot design. Yeah,
that was a really weird design. Like I didn't hate it. But as soon as I saw it in motion, I'm like, okay, that kind of makes sense because, sometimes motion brings it to life. It can have a voice and stuff like that, but it having it move was very interesting, and I liked it. It was kind of clunky, but it was graceful at the same time, and it wasn't just like this clanking collection of colossal junk. It was smart, it was humorous, and it was funny, and I liked them. I liked all the AI in it.
Yeah, Tars was the AI that he encounters, ex-military robot. It was really like, that was, again, another thing where it's like, whoa, this... And I was reading, so they wanted to go with a non-anthropomorphic kind of robot. And so they said that they figured out the most kind of mathematically symmetrical thing to create so they could do all this stuff that we see it do in the film later on. But yeah, it's basically like a talking obelisk.
Yep, pretty much. and definitely has its own personality for sure. And yeah, I liked that. I liked that it wasn't like just some android, some pasty-faced android that we're so accustomed to seeing. They're usually British, they're usually tall, they're usually Benedict Cumberbatch looking. So I'm glad that it was something just. I like that it was different and that it was out of the box. And yeah, it was good. I like TARS.
Yeah. So what he finds out is that he's like, oh, where am I? And well, turns out he is at NASA. This is the future NASA. And they've, it kind of makes sense, right? If you think about the whole situation at the school, like NASA, they don't even believe they did what they did, right? So they kind of have to go underground. And then he tells them, like, I got the coordinates from this anomaly, and that kind of lines up with something that they know is going on. And so then Cooper kind of tries to figure out what's going on, and they're like, yeah, so we have this plan basically to save the world and figure out, like, a way for humanity to get out of this situation. So they have two plans that they want to try and figure out. So first plan is they want to kind of do some sciencey stuff, basically. Like that plan A is a little vague, but they need to acquire some scientific knowledge so that they can understand gravity enough so that human beings can get off the planet and basically start off-world colonies. That's plan A. Plan B is for them to basically do a population bomb on another planet that is equally life-sustaining. And so they're looking for another planet to go to sustain the human population. And they're helped by the fact that they found this wormhole. A wormhole just appeared near Saturn. It's out of the blue. And they don't know why it exists. They don't know who placed it, because a wormhole is not something that appears in nature. It is a artificially created event. And so they talk about, they sent these missions of people. So they sent 12 Ranger missions 10 years ago. And they figured out which planets could be sustainable. Now they're going to do another mission, which is going to, try and do plan A or plan B. So yeah, this is a little complicated. So what do you think about the setup of this whole, I guess, thing of like what the mission is, right?
I liked it. I honestly liked that it wasn't the first time they had tried it. I liked that this had already been something that had been well underway for a decade and that they'd been working on it. And like, we see time pass differently for our main characters who eventually go, but just think of it in the way that people have already been doing this. People have already been like going through the things that our main characters that we come to really love are going to experience. And I like that Michael Caine kind of tells, Cooper at one point, like, oh, I've already been, like, we were going to leave without you. Like, you can come, but, like, we're ready to go, like, now. And we can't really wait for an answer. So, yeah, I like that the setup was that they've already been trying. And because usually when we watch movies like this, the main character shows up and they're like, oh, this is the first mission and we haven't tried anything like this yet. And so I like that the setup was that, we've been trying and we don't have an answer yet. But we're going to keep trying.
Yeah. So yeah, they're going to try this other mission, and they feel like, because Cooper kind of just came in out of nowhere. And so it feels like it was fate that he would come. And Cooper thinks that too. And so he's kind of contemplating whether he's going to go or not. And, Murph doesn't want him to go. And then Murph says, oh, I figured out the message that's being sent. The message is stay. But he decides not to go. Cooper decides he's going to leave. And Murph doesn't take it well. And she's kind of just like mad and, angry, which is understandable, right? I mean, again, there was a lot of people who didn't make it in these missions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he knows that. He knows that it's basically a one-way trip. Like, if he comes back, everybody's already going to be gone. Like, and he's very hopeful that he will come back. Like, he's very optimistic. I think part of it, I think Murph is one of the reasons why he is so optimistic. You know, I have to go back for her and my son and things like that. But it's still really sad because, like, you don't know, because maybe they'll kill Matthew McConaughey off. We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. We have no idea. Because, you know, like, what? I mean, how many, like, in the early days, how many people actually made it all the way through these missions?
Well, it's not very optimistic when they finally go, for sure. And they said that they've done like 12, something like that, and we only know of 3 that they find. So it's pretty bleak.
It is pretty bleak, yeah. Yeah, so then we get so he decides he's gonna go. He drives off. We see them lift off. Some really cool stuff, and I feel like they really got this right. The way that the spaceship takes off into orbit, it's really cool. And then Tars is like making these, I guess you could say, funny jokes, right? He's like, yeah, plenty of slaves for my robot colony. It's like, what?
Yeah, they're like, yeah, his humor's up like by 60% or something.
Yeah,
like that.
he's like,
it's like, oh, can we adjust that?
Yeah, let's take the humor down a notch. So then they dock with the Endurance, and the Endurance is pretty much a futuristic version of the ISS, the International Space Station. It's the circular thing that has these little pods. It has like 12 pods on it. So they dock, and they spin to create gravitational force. And then they're off on their mission. They have, I forget how long they said it was, but they're going to go to Saturn, where the where the wormhole is, and that's going to take them some amount of time. So they're going to go into sleep, whatever that they call that,
like hibernation, basically.
Yeah, they're going to go into hibernation, and then they're going to approach the wormhole. I thought these scenes of space were like really, really well done. I mean, they are absolutely amazing.
Oh, they're so good. Like when they're passing over like Saturn or whatever, and you just see this tiny little dot that's supposed to be them compared to this giant. It's so breathtaking. It's so beautiful. I love space movies that look like this. I love it.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's just so beautiful, like how vast the universe is, but how empty it is. But, again, like to be that close to something like Saturn, right? It's just awe-inspiring. It's phenomenal. Yeah. And I just love that, this film goes there. This film is depicting all of these incredible events that can take place in the universe, and tries to show us what it could be like for a human being to go into these situations. Yeah, it's just absolutely gorgeous, the photography and everything. And then we get this cool thing, like this Michael Caine. He reads this poem. He recites it like over and over and over again in the film.
Yep.
Do not go gently into that kind of.
Yeah, I understood the meaning behind the poem, but after a while, it's just like, again.
Yes. Yeah, it was very repetitive.
It was very repetitive, and again, I get the theme, and it's a phenomenal poem. Like I love that poem, but I get it. I get it.
Rage.
Like, oh my god.
Rage against the dying of the light. Yeah.
It's like, I get it.
I know. Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. So then, yeah, they go into hypersleep, and then they exit hypersleep near Saturn. And yeah, Murph is still super mad. She won't send him a message. Cooper's like looking at messages from the John Lithgow character and Tom and all this stuff, and they're just saying, yeah, this is what's gonna happen. Tom's gonna be a farmer, blah blah blah. We'll talk to you later, et cetera, et cetera. So then Romley gets really excited because they're approaching the wormhole, and then Romley does this really cool explanation of why the wormhole looks like a sphere to us, because of like basically it's bending space time, and so if you take a circle in 3 dimensions, it looks like a sphere. And then we get this really cool scene. I think one of the coolest scenes in all of sci-fi, like the history of science fiction. They enter the wormhole. Like, even when they first see the wormhole, it's unbelievable. It is unbelievable seeing that.
It was really, really cool. It looks so real. It looks so cool. It looked like they were really on like the edge of this. And I was just like, I was so scared for them to go inside because it's such an unknown. And even like the film itself is showing something like this is what we think it might be. Nobody actually fucking knows. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But like it was really, really cool. Like I really liked it. Like are you falling forward? Are you falling backward? Is there up? Is there down? There's no up, no down. There's no left, no right. It's just you're just kind of occupying this odd space, and it was very good. It was very, very good.
Yeah, it's so cool. And like there's a shot of like the ship approaching it, and you just see this big sphere, and this thing is coming near it, and it's just like like you could just imagine being someone seeing that and just be like, I have no idea what's gonna happen.
I have no idea. I'd be scared shitless, honestly. Like, and it almost seems like for a moment the way it looks, it's like, did they penetrate it? Did they go through it? Did they just enter it? There were so many questions I had of how they were going to show it. Is it just going to be like this? Are they going to poke into it and it's just going to be like this blob and it goes like bloop 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 or something, kind of like a bubble? Or is it just like this? Is it just like the drop off? Is that just it? And then it's like a free fall into what?
Yeah, that is kind of one thing we see them approach it, and then we see what happens when they're inside of it. We don't see because maybe that's just something we don't know until we do it. Like what it looks like to see the sphere and then see you go into the sphere.
Exactly.
From the outside. Like I have no idea.
But I don't know.
Yeah, maybe like you
or
see.
Is it just like does it just suck you in? But it's not a black hole, so why would it just suck you in, kind of a thing? But it's kind of like like because in the second season of Star Trek Discovery, they use a similar thing where they use a wormhole and things like that. But what happens is they use a point of reference in the space transports you through a wormhole. They use a point of reference, so that point of reference is pulling you through the wormhole. Which again is like, it's sci-fi, so you can do your own thing with it, whatever. I feel like because it was something similar in Interstellar, because they have coordinates of where they're going because they know where the last person was. It's something similar to that. So I kind of like that there's this point of reference that can tug you through and kind of be a compass in that sense. But I liked how this wormhole was portrayed more. In Discovery, it's a little more trippy. It's a little weirder. Again, they don't portray anything of what's up or what's down. It's, again, just kind of like this free fall into nothing. Sorry, I just got a weird Facebook notification.
Yeah, no.
But I like it a little bit more, mostly because of just how it looked. I think it looked a little bit more realistic, even though we don't know. We have no real answer. It's all just theory of what it looks like inside a wormhole. I liked this portrayal a lot more.
Yeah, I just thought it was just unbelievably cool. And then when they're going into it and they're passing through, and it's just so amazingly visually compelling. Like you just see universes, like you see galaxies flying past you. And it's all because it's basically like a circular tube of space, and then because it's like warping space and like kind of contracting it, and you just see all of this space flying past them. It was unbelievable. And then go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say parts of it actually reminded me of Star Trek: The Motion Picture when they go inside this crazy like dome thing. It's V'ger V'ger basically is like this space entity. It's massive. Its mass is unknowable, and within it there are universes. There are there are planets. There's cultures, and it kind of reminded me a bit of that visually. It reminded me of that, and I was I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I've seen that before, but I like that they do something different with it. That you see all of this, you see life passing by you, and you're like, how does it fit? You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
because our minds are trying to figure it out and to work out an equation that will make it fit, but sometimes it just doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah. That's physics for you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Crazy stuff. So then while they're passing through, Brand sees this anomaly. It's this weird gravitational thing kind of coming out into the ship at her, and she like reaches out to touch it. And it's just all really very, very different from anything any humans ever experienced, right?
Oh yeah.
And then there's this great shot of when they exit the wormhole. Like, it's just, you can see the space kind of undistort, and then they arrive in this this place. And yeah, they're at this somewhere way off into space, some other location that's way far away. We don't even know how far. And there's a bunch of planets around this massive black hole called Gargantua. And then they have to decide, okay, how are we what's our approach to figuring out which planets we need to go on to find which ones are sustainable.
Because they only have X amount of fuel. They only have a certain amount of supplies, and they need to be very precise, which I liked.
Yeah. So they decide they're going to go on this planet. They call it Miller's Planet after the astronaut who landed there. So basically, the setup is like there's maybe 3 or 4 planets. Each planet is situated somewhere near the black hole, either further or closer, and they are receiving a signal of data from each planet, and each planet is sort of, that's how they're deciding which one to go on. If the data says this is habitable, they're going to go there. If not, forget it. And so basically they have 3 choices. And so first they decide they're going to go to Miller's Planet, and it's a little dangerous because every hour they're on Miller's Planet is 7 years of Earth time.
Yeah, fuck that. No thanks.
Yeah, that's relativity. That is temporal relativity. Yeah, and so they have to they're going to do it, but they have to be very precise about the amount of time they spend there, because plan A is to save humanity, not to just leave them there. And if too much time goes by, again, the human element is all this time. If all this time goes by, what are you saving? Like, Cooper's got a family, and then his family's going to be older than him.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's he really doesn't want to go down there. Like, it's just bad feelings. Oh, like, I've got a really bad feeling about this. It's too much of a risk.
Yeah.
Because they're like, we got to get down there, get the data, check in with Miller, and get the fuck out of Dodge before an hour passes. And that's just like, holy shit! Like, that, you have an hour, or even before the hour is up, you gotta get out of there. Because if an hour is 7 years, minutes is months. You know what I mean?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
No matter what, they're losing time. No matter which way they slice it, they're losing time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then we get to see another one of the greatest things in this film is the Gargantua, the black hole. It's again, this is like one of the most amazing things depicted in science fiction. This black hole. What's so cool about it was like, this was probably one of the first times that we've, in any way, shape, or form, attempted to depict realistically what a black hole of this type would look like.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually consulted some, actual scientists and physicists to
people who devote their lives to this.
Yeah, there was a guy, I forget his name, but he also kind of helped with the film and the script. He wrote a scientific paper based upon what the black hole looks like in this film, because what they did was they just fed some math. Pretty much, they fed math into the CGI machines, and then it spat out this thing. It spat out what Gargantua looks like. And interesting thing was in 2019, we basically figured out the first way to actually kind of photograph a black hole, and it looks very similar to this, very similar to what you see in Interstellar. There's the kind of the lensing, like the I forget what you call that, but like because of the way that it distorts certain things, you get that where there's a circle and then there's like this thing around it in the front. Yeah, so like what you're seeing is very close to reality, which is kind of mind-blowing.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. I mean, it's pretty fucking scary at the same time, but it's pretty cool. Like, you can't help but be like, wow, nature is awesome. Like, or is there more to it than just nature? What else is there what are the components of this thing? You know what I mean? Like, I always wonder, is it aware of what it is? I always wonder that about everything. Like, not about a chair or, things like that, but like, does a bird know it's a bird, or is it just, going on instinct,
Yeah, does the does a supermassive black hole know that it's one of the most incredibly insane things that it can appear in nature? Who knows?
Who knows? But it's definitely awe. It's awe.
Yeah, it is awe-inspiring. Yeah, it's just there's so many things, right? So we've gone from a wormhole to seeing this massive black hole. It's just mind-blowing, right? It's absolutely mind-blowing.
It's fucking crazy, dude. Like, I was just like, this movie is just throwing a lot at me, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying all the shit it's throwing at me. Like, we just went through a wormhole. Now we're on the edge of a fucking black hole, which, like, just...
Yeah, and there's this great shot where they're like, they're approaching the planet, Miller's planet, and like, it's right at the cusp of the black hole, and you see all the kind of the light kind of flaring out at the bottom of it as their ship is going to. It's like, it is so beautiful what they are able to depict in this film.
It really is. And I feel like it pays homage to a lot of other films as well. Like, I see some Star Trek themes in there, some 2001: A Space Odyssey, just with the AI alone. I mean, yeah, it's not going to try and kill you. But it definitely, even just a lot of homage to sci-fi. And, like, this is the culmination of all these other films. And I even read, I've never seen it personally. I've always meant to watch it. This is very high up on my to watch list, which is Event Horizon.
Yeah.
I heard this movie was very much inspired by that film. And yeah, I just like it. It's just, not only is it a beautiful movie and I really like the story, but it's also just, it really does feel like the crescendo of all these other sci-fi movies we've grown up watching and have enjoyed so much.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, it's taking all that stuff and then, all those 2001, all these things that are trying to like depict for the time what we think of the future, and then putting it all together. This is the next level of that. It is definitely paying homage to that. I mean, in that scene where they go through the wormhole, I can't help but think of like, compare that with in 2001 when he finds that final obelisk, and then there's like, it tilts up, and then who knows what happens, right? Mm-hmm. he probably goes through a wormhole or something. But this is like taking that, but then showing it in a different way visually. But it's, mm-hmm. It's kind of hitting on the same stuff. So yeah, it's such a cool film. So then they arrive on Miller's planet, and they get there, and it's just a bunch of water, right? Just a bunch of water. Not much else. They don't really see much else. They're trying to find where Miller's stuff is at, like the data or the ship or whatever. And then they try to find the beacon. Oh, and another thing, this planet is 130% of Earth's gravity, so you're 30%. Yeah. Yeah, you are heavier, and it's harder to move.
Yeah. Like, on top of the fact that you're wearing these suits that are super freaking heavy, like, there's so much weight bearing down on you. Like, they're panting, like, they're out of breath all the time. They're just like, get me off this fucking planet.
Yeah. So then they're looking for this beacon, and then they find it, and they're in trouble. The beacon is destroyed. It's just a bunch of wreckage. And they also don't understand like what the terrain is. And then later on, Cooper's like, those aren't mountains. That is a wave. So there's like a massive. I mean, how big is this wave? I don't even like.
It's the size of the Empire freaking State Building, dude. It's just like, and that's the thing. Like, it's so because like the gravity's wearing down on them. That's obviously very heavy on your body. You're on an alien planet, so that's gonna mess with you psychologically. There is wreckage everywhere. Clearly, someone is dead. I would think I'm looking at a mountain too. Like when Anne Hathaway says, I'm going towards the mountain. And they're just like, wait, what? What does that even mean? Like, it's almost like maybe it's affecting her psychologically in a way that her mind can't comprehend that there is this massive tsunami coming at her. And that her brain is going to try and rationalize it as something else. Because why would you think? And the water's not even that deep, which I thought was really interesting. It's this whole planet, I'm assuming, of water. And it's not even that deep. It's like ankle deep to them. So not only do you have all of this gravity bearing down on you, but you're trying to move through water. And we all know, like, when you're trying to run through water, it's a pain in the ass.
Pain in the ass. Yeah. And so it's all just, yeah, it's really good you bring that up, because think of all the crazy obstacles that get thrown at them. They don't know what the terrain is like. They're heavier. It's water, so they're slower. So it's and time is a huge resource for them. And so this is sucking away really their most valuable resource, which is time.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're really in trouble. And so then, like, Bran does this stupid thing where she's like, oh, I have to get the data instead of getting into the ship and leaving. So she's trying to do that, and she basically kind of gets stuck because she can't move. It's the planet. She's too heavy. The water is slowing her down. She's not going to make it in time.
She's tired. I think she gets caught on something too. I think she gets caught on some of the wreckage, but coupled with the fact that she's heavier and in water, and she's obviously exhausted. She can't move. I love that moment because, like, Wes Bentley's just kind of like, unfortunately we didn't get to know Wes Bentley's character all that well. But he knows he can't get to where he's trying to, but he knows he can't in time. So he tells, I love this moment when he tells Tars, go get her. Because it brings it back to that whole, like, an AI's first mission is to protect human life at all costs, basically, or something like that. There's like a list of, like, AI prerogatives or something, or priorities. And I love seeing, like, Tars just move, like, super fast through the water. Yeah. And he's just like seeing him in motion before when they were still on NASA was just a little bit. And then you see him just like, he's like super fast. He's agile in water. Again, he's not this clanking thing. He's very graceful, and he just kind of like scoops her up. And I just thought that was so cool. I love that.
That was so cool. Cause like he does this kind of cylindrical movement. Mm-hmm. He like basically turns into like a sphere and then moves like that. And then it like creates these robot arms like this and then grabs her and then runs with like its feet.
Yep. It was so good. I love it.
That was like, again, another like, wait, what? He can do that too?
Exactly. Like, he's not limited. Like, if that's what his limit is, then like that's crazy. But I feel like it's just a little taste of like, no, this thing is actually pretty helpful in a time of crisis. And again, it goes back, he was a military robot. So obviously he's not going to just be he's not going to look like a printer for no reason. You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of shaped like an old style printer, but like he's pretty badass. I like Tars a lot.
Yeah, Tars is great.
I just loved that moment of, him not even hesitating, because even though he could list off like, I'm not going to make it back in time. It's futile. We should just let her die. No, he doesn't hesitate. He just goes and gets her.
Yeah. So he gets her, and then they're all trying to get back onto the ship before the wave hits, but they just can't make it. The wave hits them. It floods the engines. Doyle doesn't even get onto the ship. He basically gets sucked into this wave, and that's pretty much it for him. And they are stuck on this planet until their engines get
dry
unflooded.
out, basically. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Cooper's pretty pissed at her.
Cooper is hella pissed. Cooper's hella pissed at her for good reason. She kind of like, look, you're the most important thing is time, and you're wasting that resource. That's the main thing of the mission.
Yeah.
And they have this they basically have a fight.
Yeah, and then they had this really interesting conversation after, like, they've exchanged, angry words and everything like that. And I think Cooper asked her something like, well, how long do you think Miller had been here? And she was just like, well, time is relative. We might have just come right after the crash. Like, we don't know how long she was here. Because the beacon was still going. You know what I mean? Like, it was still transmitting data. And so obviously she was there. Miller was there long enough to send information back. But she's like, we don't know how long, like, this has been a thing, basically.
Yeah, so it is an utter disaster, right? Just like on every level, it is an absolute disaster for them. And yeah, we get some other stuff. They talk about, like, is there a way to travel in time? And then this is where she says, which is going to be irrelevant later, the only way that we know of to traverse time and space is through gravity. Because he's trying to think, like, is there a way for us to, like, get back the time we lost? And basically the answer is no for them.
Yeah, like, we can keep moving forward, but we can't really go back.
Yep. Which sucks. So then finally what happens is a second wave is coming.
And they need to get the hell out of Dodge.
They need to get the hell out of there. And it's like, well, the engines aren't deflooded yet. It's like, I don't care. We got to go now. And so then they're able to, like, kind of jumpstart the engine in the Ranger and get the hell out of there before they get hit with the second wave. But yeah, a really bad way to start this whole thing. Someone died. They lost a bunch of time. And they didn't really get anything out of it. It's not that they got any knowledge out of it.
Not really, no. Which
Utter
is really
disaster.
important. Yeah, that's just heartbreaking, where you're like, oh, well, that was a wasted trip in more ways than one.
Yeah. So then they get back, and Romley is like, right? Romley, he's been stuck with a robot for what we find out is 23 years, 4 months, and 8 days by himself.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. That sucks. That sucks.
I really liked Romley's character. Like, that was just so sad. He's like, oh, you came back. And, like, the looks on Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey's face where they're like, I'm so sorry. Like,
yeah.
Like, that 23 years.
By yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, yeah, the thing, too, is, he even says, like, I on some levels, I didn't think you were ever going to come back. I thought you were dead. What do you do then if everyone died?
Mm-hmm. They're lucky he was still there.
Yeah, if he didn't just leave. So then we get, this is the emotional gut punch of the film. So then Cooper starts looking at all the messages that were left while he was gone, these 23 years. And then he sees Tom. Tom keeps sending him messages. Tom is growing up. Then Tom, says, oh yeah, John Lithgow died. We buried him. And then he has, I think, a son. He has a kid, his first child.
Mm-hmm.
He shows him the first child. And then you just get this devastating message where Tom is like, everyone's telling me you're not going to come back. You're not going to make it.
I need to let go.
Yeah. And he's like, yeah, I have to do it. I have to let you go now. Goodbye, Dad. It's like, no.
Yeah.
Oh, just devastating. And then he gets one last message from Murph, who's like, she's fucking mad, right? And, she's in the message, she's like, yeah, like, I'm sending you this message because, at this point, we would be the same age. So they are actually the same age at this point in the movie. And she's mad at him for leaving. Still. Yeah, it is devastating. And
it's so devastating.
Like, there's a lot of his films kind of get pegged as being, like, very cold and kind of technical and mechanical. And I read someone, they talked about how, like, his films are very materialistic. Like, there's always some kind of something. It always has to do with time, and time is the main thing that he's dealing with. Like, that's the real enemy of whoever the protagonist is. But this is, like, a really emotional scene, like one of the most emotional scenes in any film he's ever done, and it really connects with the character.
Yeah, and it really connects with, like, the audience too, and you just feel so bad because she's never sent a message. She's been angry and hurt this whole time. She's struggling her way through, and it's like this because she doesn't know if he's still alive or not. And it's like this weird rite of passage almost. Like, yeah, I'm your age now. I'm the age you were when you left. And it's just like, ugh, like you missed so much. You missed so many things. And so it's just so sad.
Yeah, it's devastatingly sad. And, you know, again, like that's the cost of doing this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You sacrifice your life and your livelihood.
And your family. Like,
And your family.
And your family and your time. And again, time is like the most important theme. And yeah, it's just, that theme is pretty, I get why there were so many memes of it and everything like that. Now I get it, like 7 years later. I get it.
Yeah, like him crying and then like something, whatever's on the television.
Yeah, exactly. Like I get it now, and I'm just like, oh, that's actually really, really sad. I was laughing at these things. I didn't even know the context of it or anything.
Yeah, and McConaughey is like unbelievable in that scene. Like, my God.
Yeah, like I don't know if they were playing like it on a monitor or if someone was reading the lines behind like a camera or something. But he was fantastic. He was so good. He doesn't even say anything. He doesn't even say anything. And you just like, you feel for this guy so much. And you can just see he regrets it. He's like, I should have stayed.
Because, yeah, you can, that's such a human emotional thing. Like not being able to be there with your family as they get older. Mm-hmm. Like that's.
Or to just be there for them too. Like, you know, his like, I kind of missed it the first time, but then as the movie kind of progressed more, Casey Affleck's first child died. He got sick or something like that. Because you don't see you only see one kid, and he has a different name. Because he mentions in one of his videos, we were going to name him Cooper, but my wife thought, no, maybe the next one, kind of, and chuckles about it. And then, yeah, he wasn't he wasn't able to be there for him.
Yeah.
And it's so sad.
Ugh. Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah. And then, so we now get sort of brought into the story of Murph, who's, you know, in her 30s now. And she works for NASA. And she works with Dr. Brand. And so she's a scientist. So, yeah, she's in this dystopian future. She's living kind of a solid life. And there's actually this really great line, again, from the John Lithgow character. So, like, right when they go off on the mission, Dr. Brand comes to them with the car and is talking to the John Lithgow character. And then basically he's saying, yeah, Murph is going to come work for us in the future. And then John Lithgow says like, oh yeah, well, you know, hopefully she'll, they'll probably be good for her. Hopefully she'll make a fool out of you just like she does her teachers. And I thought that was really kind of interesting foreshadowing and also just like a funny, you know, line from that character. Again.
No, absolutely. And I think it's also a way for like the characters themselves to kind of cope with what they've lost. You know, Dr. Brand's daughter is most likely never coming back, and he knows that. I get the impression it's his only kid and that they were very close. I mean, she followed in his footsteps. There's obviously a real closeness there. And Murph loses her dad. And I feel like they kind of try and cope with it together by creating this, like, not necessarily like a father-daughter dynamic, but like this student and mentor kind of a thing where they can kind of be there for each other. They can kind of replace what they've lost with one another.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And like Murph is still very angry with him. And it's just like to the point where she doesn't forgive him. And she thinks, this is the main thing too that's really devastating. She thinks that he left them.
Yeah.
Like not that he like had to struggle to make this choice, that he wanted to get away from them and just leave this planet that's dying to be somewhere else.
Yeah, like you left us to die. Like that's how she feels. And I think it's very common for kids who do have a child that abandons or a parent that abandons them. They see it only as abandonment. They don't see that there might have been, they don't understand circumstance. They don't want to understand circumstance. And it's just this anger that's kind of left behind. And to an extent from my own life, I kind of understand why she's angry. But then I found out why. You know, I found out reasons why, what was going on in this person's life at the time to make them want to just run away. And while it's still a shitty thing to do, but I'm an adult now. I'm not a kid, and I at least took the time to understand someone's reasons, and Murph just doesn't want to, because it only seems like there is one reason. The planet's dying. Everyone else is dying. I'm just going to leave. I'm just going to take off.
And the thing too is I feel like she probably feels like she understood what the message was, and he just wouldn't listen to her. That makes it even worse.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Like, oh, I was just a kid. You're not going to listen to me because I'm just some stupid kid.
Yeah.
And she tried telling him so badly. And because so often kids if we remember what it was like to be kids, like I feel like, at least I felt like I was never listened to. When I had something to say, I felt like I either didn't have the words to articulate it properly because I was a child, or I just wasn't listened to or taken seriously when something was important. And I definitely feel that for her. I do.
Yeah. So then back in space, so now that their disastrous first mission has happened, now they in a very calculated manner, are deciding the next planet they're going to go to. So there's 2 planets. It's either Man's planet or Edmund's planet. So, and they're basically, Man's planet seems more fruitful, I guess. So Brand wants to go to Edmund's planet, and Cooper wants to go to Man's planet. And then Cooper kind of drops this bombshell on Romley, where he's like, well, Romley, you probably need to know the fact that Dr. Brand is in love with is in love with Edmonds.
She's been emotionally compromised.
Yeah, emotionally compromised.
She's been emotionally compromised. Her vote is null and void. Like, it doesn't hold water.
Yeah.
Sorry, Anne.
Yeah, and she's like, why should that matter? And then she kind of...
It fucking matters. It matters.
Yeah.
Let's not play that game, sweetie.
Yeah, then she cops to it, and then she kind of just opens the floodgate, right? Like, yeah, I want to see him again. And if maybe there's a 1% chance, I want to take it, And then she goes into the spiel about love and stuff. This is okay. So I'm curious, like, if you were in that situation, so you're Romley in this situation. You're Romley.
Yeah, fuck.
Which side are you taking? What's your vote?
Oh, man. If I was Romley, or I'm in Romley's position, because, like, I would just feel so bad, but because, like, the data from Man's planet is so strong, it's been the only consistent stream of data that they've gotten. You have to go with what seems like the best position, and, like, you have to we have to set aside our personal feelings for the betterment of humanity. It's one person, and that's horrible to say, but you only have one shot, and you can't afford to be wrong. You can't afford to be wrong. And just because you're like, if it was Ryan on that planet and I was Anne Hathaway, I would probably feel the exact same way she does. You know what I mean? And it's just it's a sticky situation. It's horrible, but, like, you have to go with the data. It's awful, but you have to go with that. This is humanity. This isn't just one guy. Mm-hmm. And you don't know if he's alive. Like, they got to Miller's planet and it was an utter freaking mess.
Yeah. And Miller was dead.
And on top of that, Miller was dead. On top of the fact that going there killed another scientist who was very important to all of this. Yeah, he was a kind of a detractor of, like, Cooper, but, like, at the end of the day, he was chosen. He was there for a reason. And who's to say if you go to frickin' Edmund's planet, it's not going to be worse? Like, there's no guarantee, and you just have to go with the best stream of data at that point. And it's awful to say, but it's at that point you can't. That 1% is not valid. It doesn't hold water.
Yeah, you gotta, because imagine if there was another disaster on that planet. He's dead. It's uninhabitable. The mission's basically over, and they
exactly. And there's no way of telling anyone, hey, we fucked up.
It's also difficult for her too to make her case because of what happened on Miller's planet when she kind of
Yeah, she
Basically
kind
fucked up.
of. Yeah, she fucked up. She shot herself in the foot. On top of the fact that she is emotionally compromised, and we can't afford to have the heart lead us right now. We really can't. Like even Cooper, who is doing this all for his kids and future generations, he's like, I can't take that risk. Like I can't trust you. I can't trust that when you get there, if we find him, you're not going to do something incredibly rash because of your compromised position. She's not a what's the word I'm looking for? Reliable anymore.
Yeah, she's not reliable, unfortunately. So she concedes to it, and they make their plans to go to Dr. Mann's planet. And then we get this other scene where she kind of, again, like now emotions are very high, and she kind of was like, well, you know what? When the situation is on your end, Cooper, and you have to choose between your family going back and never seeing your family again, I hope you use the same kind of credence that you did with me. Yeah.
Do I have to? I was hoping you weren't going to say that, actually.
Yeah. But that's the price, right? That's the price you got to pay to do this stuff. You have to think beyond ourselves and our selfish interests. Think of the big picture, the human picture. Humanity is bigger than you or me or any other individuals. It's bigger than that. It just is,
Exactly.
And you gotta. What's the line from Spock?
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one.
Yeah, they do, and that's true. It's true. They do. So back on Earth, Dr. Brand is dying. He's basically on his deathbed, and then he starts babbling the stuff, and then he says that they've been lying about solving the gravitational equation, lying about it for decades.
You bitch ass old man. God damn it. Like that's like, God, like Michael Caine. Just like
that, yeah.
Just like sobbing on his deathbed, admitting to someone that he has mentored and cared about and been a father figure to. Just, I kind of lied.
Yeah, I lied for, at this point, that's most of her life. She's been fed that lie.
Yeah, right? It's one of those alters your perspective on everything moments. And those moments suck. Those moments are horrible. I had one of those this year, and it sucked. And it's just like, it's like that, that zoom in, zoom out effect, kind of like in Jaws when like Brody sees like the shark attack happening and it goes really tight on his face, but the background is just like, I love that effect.
Yeah, the vertigo effect.
Exactly. And it happens. That is something that genuinely happens. And it happens to Murphy in that moment. And it brings up more questions than answers. And it sucks. Because then she's like, well, did my dad know about it? Who else knew?
Then, we get this great scene where Murph sends a message like, oh, so to her dad, like, oh, so you knew that we were doomed here and you left us to die, blah, 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 blah.
And she calls out Anne Hathaway's character straight up. She calls her out. She's just like, I don't know if this is going anywhere, but I'm mad. But it's a different mad because now there's doubt in what she's always believed about her dad, which is maybe he just left us to die, but maybe he didn't know, but maybe he did know. And that validates her feelings this whole time, but it also puts in a huge level of doubt as well. Like, did you just take my dad from me without telling him? Like, that would piss me off.
Absolutely. And then we get, so like, this was one of the most interesting parts of the film actually for me, because this was a choice about where we're going to go philosophically in the film. So the message is being sent, it gets received by their ship. And then it's like, I think it's Case or Lars, one of the two of them, is watching the message. He's watching it. and this is like some emotional shit, right? And it's like, whoa, what's he gonna do?
Exactly. Oh, and I was for a moment, just to go to the Lars and Tars thing, I was briefly confused for a second because I honestly didn't realize there were two separate AIs, but Lars is basically the pilot and Tars is the anthropomorphized version of Lars. I'm assuming they share similar, not maybe thoughts, but mission priorities, basically. But that's just a little side note for me, is that it was very late in the game when I realized they were two separate AI.
Yeah, and the names are very similar too, so it's kind of easy to.
Exactly, but no, it is a moment where he's just, or we're saying he only because he has a male voice,
male
but he's
voice.
kind of, you can almost like, there's no face to either of these AIs. There's just a data stream. You know what I mean?
There's like a matrix board.
Exactly, and even though it's just that, you get to know this voice where you can almost kind of, it's almost like, should I be watching this?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. It kind of like it peers in, and it's like.
He's like, I don't think this was for me, and it makes you wonder: did Lars and Tars even know? Like, they're these super smart robots. They must have. Computers are supposed to figure out things that we can't, and it's almost like this is something that I am programmed to know.
The 90% truth thing, right? Can't be 100% truthful because that's actually a detriment.
Exactly.
Okay, so yeah, and that's kind of left to linger. So then, that's very we get this kind of Hal vibe. It's like, whoa, is Hal gonna suppress this information? And so then we see them. Please don't. Yeah. So then we see them flying down to man's planet, and man, like, again, the photography is so beautiful. Like, the sky is literally frozen. So like, there's these frozen clouds. And there's a whole bunch of shots where you kind of see the ground level and the sky kind of compressing together as they're flying downward, and then they hit a frozen cloud. It's really kind of funny.
Was that Iceland? Were they filming in Iceland? Because I feel like Iceland's become super popular to film in lately. Because even season 2 of Discovery's doing that.
I believe so. Yes, it was Iceland. You're right. Mm-hmm. It just looks alien, right?
Oh God, yeah. I'm like, this is a real place. How do you live there? It's like how they're still like in where is it? There's like still like these tiny little pockets of like communities and humanity that in like Russia or something like that, like deep in like the Russian wilderness, that like still thrive and have never like advanced beyond the wheel and fire, basically. And it's like, people actually live there. Like, how do you survive? Like, what kind of person does it take to survive in a climate like this? It's crazy to me.
Yeah. So then they find this outpost where man was, and they go to wake him up. And again, they call this the Lazarus mission because Lazarus rose from the dead. And who pops out? Our friend
Matt Damon.
Matt freaking Damon.
Yeah,
like,
I was surprised by that. I'm like, I thought you were on Mars, dude. Like, I thought you just took a trip to Mars. But no, he's just been sleeping for 20 years.
Yeah. And he comes out crying, and he's super emotional. And yeah, we think like, oh, it's Matt Damon. Yes. This is gonna be, we're finally turning the page. We're finally into a positive territory in this film. So Dr. Mann shows them around the world, and then, they're talking about sciencey stuff, basically. And then Lars comes down. And so this is closing that open-ended question. Lars shows them that whole message unedited, doesn't do the Hal thing.
No, unfiltered, uncut, raw. Here it is.
Yeah, just blasts it on them, and they, Cooper and Brand are like blown away because they didn't know, right? She didn't know either.
Yeah, that's something I was wondering about. It's like, would she have known? Would he have just like sent her off without telling her? And it turns out now he knew and she didn't, and that's like, it's a huge betrayal. Oh my God, like, she's just as torn up by it as everybody else, and it's the only other person who knew was Man.
Yeah, and Cooper is like, and Man goes into this whole thing. Oh yeah, we had to lie because Plan A there's no hope for Plan A. So we made up Plan A to fund Plan B. The lie, the colony is the only way. It's hopeless, and we are the future. That's what Dr. Mann says. we are the future. That's it. Earth is done. And it's like, wow.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, that's
Dick
a big
move,
lie.
bro. Dick move.
And so Cooper is like, dude, I did not sign up for this. Did not sign up for this.
Mm-mm.
I signed up to save humanity on Earth. I didn't sign up for some mission where I leave my family. If I knew this, I would have said no.
Mm-hmm.
And so then basically he says, okay, I'm gonna help you guys, but then I'm gonna fly back to Earth and be with my family again. And so then, we get this cool intercut between Murphy and Dr. Mann with Cooper. And so Dr. Mann's like, oh, I need you to, I need this. Yeah, this is like the point where we're like, wait, what? Yeah, I need you to come over here and help me.
I want you to look over this cliff. Just look over there for a minute, and I'm going to stand behind you. It's just like, that's when I was just like, yeah, I don't think Matt Damon's nice in this movie. I think that nap really fucked him up a little bit.
Yeah. And then Dr. Mann is an interesting character. Dr. Mann is like one of those super arrogant, super self-important, thinks they're going to save the universe type of people. And when they figure out they're not the center of the universe, they have a tantrum.
Yeah, pretty much. And he's just like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, I feel so bad for doing this. I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah,
You're
I
just
feel
a
so
coward.
bad, but I'm going to have to kill you.
Yeah, it's kind of just like, it's like, oh, God, I was so mad at Matt Damon. But I was just kind of like, you're such a wimp. You're such a freaking wimp. All you did was take a nap. You took a nap, you woke up cranky, and you're just gonna kill someone who's clearly the better person in the situation. It's just, yeah, it was just, and what a fucking cowardly way to do it too. You're just gonna let him die because the oxygen was like poisonous, basically.
Yeah.
I just, let him. He turns off his like internal his communicator, so he doesn't have to hear him suffocating, basically. I'm just like, you freaking wimp.
It's like, yeah, the last thing you're going to see when you die, you're going to see your family and you're going to see your life flash before your eyes.
It's going to be real painful before that happens, though, bro. Like, thank you for being so comforting in describing the last thing I'm going to see.
Yeah.
Like,
what a scummy person.
No, it's not for you to decide.
The other thing, too, is so then he, there's this whole thing where Romley's trying to get this information out of his military robot Kip, which was destroyed. So he's trying to get it out. Blah, blah, blah. This thing's happening. And this piece of trash sets up a bomb. Set up a bomb in the in this robot. So whenever someone tries to access the information, it just explodes. So that kills Romley.
Yeah, I was mad about that. I was super mad. Like he's already shown that he's capable of in a really piss poor way of trying to kill someone, and then he's responsible for. I was so mad about Romley because Romley was so. Romley
didn't deserve that.
No, he didn't. And after being stuck in space by yourself for 23 years and then he gets blown up, it's just that just pisses me off. I feel like even I forget if it was Lars or Tars, but one of them tries warning him before he accesses it and then he can't save him.
Save him.
He even says I couldn't save Romley. And it's just so sad and that was just so shitty.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's whichever one is the one that can actually. It's not the one that's the pilot.
I think it's Tars then. Yeah, I think it's Tars.
Yeah, Tars like, oh no, wait, and it's just too late. It just sucks. It sucks. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but did you what did you expect them to have him be this way when you first saw that it was Matt Damon?
I feel like it was one of those too good to be true moments. I have all this data and we can set up down here and that's where we can have the colony, and then obviously Murphy's message gets through and man comes clean, but he's still trying to help them. But I learned from watching a lot of Star Trek, the lone survivor trope never turns out the way you want it to. There's always very rarely, because usually they there's a space station that's gone dark, abandoned or gone dark. Oh, but there's this scientist who's been here for 25 years and yada, yada, yada. But there's always some kind of self-interest that they're trying to fulfill in some way. And that's why I was just like, I don't know if I'm going to entirely trust him, but it's Matt Damon, so maybe I should. It was like, with the casting, it was very tricky because, again, this isn't a character that we generally see Matt Damon play. He's Jason Bourne. We usually root for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He's Will Hunting. Like, we usually root for him. Like, he's an eco-friendly fucking activist. We root for that guy.
Yeah, we root for that guy. Good casting against type, I guess you could say, right?
Yes, exactly. It was a good casting against type, which is why it makes it a little like, fuck you, Matt Damon. How dare you?
Fuck you, Matt Damon. Yeah.
You can leave him on Mars for all I fucking care.
So yeah, and to kind of, you know, the reason why he's trying to kill Cooper is like Brand agrees with Cooper that Cooper is going to take one of the last shit, because they, at this point, they think, okay, we're gonna create humanity on this planet, and so this is the mission's been accomplished, and they don't need the Ranger or anything like that. So he was going to take the Endurance and then go back to Earth, Cooper. So Man has to kill him because they're like, yeah, this is, you know, Man knows this isn't it. This is not habitable. We have to leave, and we're going to need that. So when they figure out that, you know, I lied, you're going to be dead. So then we're just going to go to the next planet and be over with it. And
Man just doesn't want to be there anymore either. He's ready to leave and he's going to do anything he can to make sure that he leaves. And I like how at this point in the story, Bran and Cooper are kind of like on each other's side for really the first time. She's going to help him with his goal and he's going to help her with hers. And it creates like this, until Romley dies, it creates like this nice little camaraderie between the three of them. And pardon me. So I like that she's that they're kind of helping each other for the first time. Yeah.
So then, you know, they get into this fight, right? And then like Dr. Man starts headbutting him, and then like Cooper's thing breaks, and so he's losing oxygen, and he's able to crawl and get the communicator and call for help. And you know, Dr. Brand is able to like figure it out and get to him. So they're flying like a Ranger to get to him. Meanwhile, Dr. Man is stealing another Ranger to get back to the Endurance and dock and basically lock them out, and they'd be screwed, totally screwed. They're able to save Cooper, but they're too far behind Dr. Man to stop him. And so then there's this kind of this standoff where with one of the robots withholds the docking sequence from Dr. Man. So he tries to do it manually, which is disastrous idea. And they're trying to tell him, dude, do not do it. Do not try and do it manually. You're not gonna be able to do it.
Yeah. This is why we have robots.
Yeah. But this arrogant freaking idiot, he's like, he doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's so arrogant and so dumb that he's like, oh yeah, I can do it. Like, you don't understand. And then he has this long speech before he fucking blows the thing up.
Well, it would have been long.
Yeah, it would have been. But no, he died. He thankfully, but he basically blows up the Endurance with it. Mm-hmm. It creates this massive explosion, and then it starts spinning at very, very, very high RPMs. And now they have to dock while this thing is spinning in order to stop it from spinning out of control. Yeah, and then we get again another one of the coolest sequences in the film. I like, so like Cooper's like, okay, like study the Endurance spinning, and then I think Tars is like, no, you can't do it. It's not possible. No, it's not. It's necessary.
Mm-hmm. It's necessary that you get us to dock on this damn thing.
Yeah. So what'd you think of this scene where they're like trying to like match the spin and dock with the Endurance?
Dizzying. Oh my god. Like, I thought, like, watching First Man made me dizzy, but I was just like, oh, yeah, I'm about to pass out just like Anne Hathaway did.
Yeah, Anne Hathaway passes out. She's done.
Yep. And it was very harrowing, but I was like, they got to get back. Like, they need to get back. Like, come on. These people need a break. They need good news. Come on. And, it was very good, very harrowing. And I really liked it.
Yeah. But again, this is what astronauts train for. This is why they're a different type of human than us, mere mortals.
And it kind of goes with like the name of the ship, which is Endurance, and this is you gotta have some serious endurance for this, dude. Like,
yeah,
because you're just this tiny little meat sack spinning and spinning and spinning, and it's crazy.
Yeah. But yeah, and the music. What did you think of like the music and like the sound design, like the score and the sound design for this film?
Oh, I loved it. There was no blom, so that was good. I didn't hear that. I kept waiting for it. I liked that Christopher Nolan basically told Hans Zimmer, I want a different kind of sound. I don't want necessarily the whole instrumental, whole orchestra thing. I loved the organ music, because the organ is kind of like, it's an interesting instrument. It's basically a piano, but it has a very different type of sound, and we usually associate it with like very, very dramatic, maybe even like gothic type of things. But no, I loved it. It was very, very good. It gave it personality in a way. And I really liked the sound design and the musical score, especially.
Yeah, I think the score is really good, especially like in this scene with Cooper trying to dock. It's really powerful. It's really, really works, fits the scene. But yeah, like you said, it's not the blom, it's not the over the top, super loud stuff. It's very understated and a little subtle. But yeah, it gives us, I feel like it fits the space kind of atmosphere.
I agree. Yeah, it really fits that atmosphere. Yeah, very eerie, very, unforgiving, mysterious, but beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, so I think this is, again, one of the better Hans Zimmer scores, which is saying a lot.
I feel like he outdoes himself every time.
He does.
Every time. Like, from Gladiator to Interstellar, it's just like...
Yeah, it's always so
like
impressive.
The Pirates of the Caribbean music, I freaking love. It is so good. It is so good. Like, he's a phenomenal composer.
Yeah. So now they've gotten Dock the Endurance. They've gotten it away from the they've gotten it away from Gargantua, but now they have to figure out how to get to the last planet. And so Cooper has a plan to like slingshot around Gargantua and get to Edmund's planet. And then one thing he doesn't tell Brand is that, he basically, he's going to have to detach too, leaving her by herself. Yeah, and that's like kind of a sad moment, and he's going to fly into a black hole.
Pretty much. And it's just so sad because like they had just started working together. She came back and saved them. And in a way, he's trying to save her. I think he is. I'm sending you where you originally wanted to go. Like, this is where you wanted to be, and I hope you find what you're looking for, kind of a thing. But it's just so heartbreaking because it's just like, what if I'm alone?
Yeah.
All we have is each other now at that point.
But, that's just what's got to happen. Like, otherwise they're not going to make it. So then we get this crazy scene where Cooper is flying into the black hole. This is pretty scary to me. Going into a black hole that is it. That is it for you. There is no getting out. Not even light can escape. And you are going to slowly be crushed into nothing.
Fun.
Yeah. And he's in this ship, and like the visuals are so interesting, and the sound is so interesting. Like, we get these shots of just like dust sucked into black, as a way of kind of representing like what it would look like to be descending into a complete black. Because when you go into I saw this really cool illustration of like what it would be like to go into a black hole. It's very interesting because it's very kind of similar to the wormhole. It's almost sort of like the opposite. Like, you go in, like, imagine you would go into the wormhole, and then basically on the outside you would see the universe and light, and then it would just stop. It would just become black. Just become absolutely black. And that's just it. You're just going into complete darkness. It's like one of those things, and it's sort of like death. no one can ever really know what's going to happen once you go in. Like, it's just you go in, something happens, and then that's it.
Exactly. And we don't know what that something is.
Yeah. And so he's falling and falling and going, and he's trying to pilot the ship, but it's kind of futile. And then at some point he ejects, and he's just falling. And then we get probably the craziest scene in the whole movie, right? He falls into some place. Like, can words really describe where he ends up? Like, when you first see that?
Because there's books involved, it's kind of just like a library, but what encompasses that library, what's on the outside, is very unknowable and very can't put into words exactly. It's different. It's a different realm. It's a whole other realm of existence wherever he is. Like, is his body even like there? Is it just there because we need a projection of Matthew McConaughey because he's our main character? Would it be too trippy if it was just like his mind expanding, or like where did it take him? Because this is probably not the destination he thought it was going to be. I don't know, just like a doorway to a different space and time.
Yeah, he's in, but what we know is he's basically in Murphy's room when she was younger, like pretty much at the beginning of the film that we saw. And he's like behind this bookshelf, and he sees her, and he kind of like starts beating on the bookshelf and like kind of knocks a book over.
The beginning is the end is the beginning, kind of a thing.
Yeah. It's like, what the hell is going on?
Super trippy.
So here's a question I have for you. So how do you think they pulled this scene off? How do you think that they did it?
He was suspended near a blue screen or something and just floating there is what I kind of imagined it to be. Unless he was suspended inside of a really amazing set.
Yeah, so if you can believe it, this whole thing was a set.
Wow.
That they right? They created this set, this thing. Like, all the things you saw was created for this, whatever you want to call this place. Later on, we basically find out that it's a 4-dimensional, what we call a tesseract, not like the Marvel shit.
Yeah.
A tesseract is like an object that describes how a 4-dimensional space interacts with 3-dimensional space, pretty much. And there's kind of a cool illustration. Like, if you look up like tesseract, you can see what it looks like. And what's interesting is you basically see, like, towards the end of the scene, you see the tesseract effect as this thing is sort of dissolving away. It's very interesting. And it's basically like, the best way to sort of visualize it would be a cube sort of kind of funneling in on itself infinitely.
Okay.
It's how it would work. But that's basically what it is, some kind of 4-dimensional thing, and we have a 3-dimensional being thrust into it. And then so Cooper, he figures out, oh, I need to communicate with Murph and try and send her a message. And Tars survives, and so then Tars shows up and kind of they're able to communicate with each other. And sort of one of the big things is like there's some sort of data that you can glean from being inside of a black hole that it's basically impossible for human beings to get out because, once you go in the black hole, you can't get out of it. So then now they're able to do it, and Cooper is able to communicate that information to Murph over time. And so that's basically what this whole story's been about, is for him to do this thing, to communicate with her. He was her ghost, so that they can basically together save humanity. So, yeah.
And then it goes back to, he even mentions it goes back to what Anne Hathaway's character Brand was talking about before, like love can transcend time and space and reality, and he does it. He proves it right. even if he thought it was hokey at the time and was just her being compromised in an emotional way, he's like, no, it actually is true. Like, I need to communicate with the one person who will understand what I'm trying to get across. And he does that with Murph and for her to like, you need to find me. And he tries to get himself to stay and, you know, don't go. It's not what you think it is. And,
yeah, he sees himself leave her again, and he's just
he even tries
devastated
telling
by it.
himself like, come back.
Mhm.
And another thing too is like they kept mentioning these beings that would have created the wormhole throughout the whole film. You know, why did they do it? Who is it for? And Tars kind of talks about how, yeah, I'm with these people or I'm with these beings and they're trying to communicate or something like that. And they're showing us this thing. And even he can't really put it into words as well, which I thought was like, oh, okay. So kind of, because I kept wondering if they were going to circle back to it or if it was going to be forgotten, like lost in the shuffle of all the other crazy things that were going on. But they do circle back.
Yeah, and so Cooper pretty much says that they're some kind of future version of human beings, like evolved beyond, you know, our futile, silly, three-dimensional, you know, bound like us four things that are bound by space and time, like they're unbound by it and they're far beyond it. So they created the Tesseract, this representation of every moment in time that is within her room so that Cooper can communicate with her. And then, you know, Cooper figures out he's going to transmit the quantum data to Murph through this watch that he gave her. And then we see Murph realize that she's getting this data from the watch. She like sees like there's like this code on the second hand or something like that, or the minute hand, and it's moving. And then we see her gather all the data, complete the equation, and then she has a eureka moment, and oh yeah, by the way, Topher Grace is in this movie too.
Oh yeah, that was random.
Venom. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in this. It was just kind of like, okay, he's just kind of there. You know,
yeah, Topher Grace.
That's how I kind of feel about Topher Grace, is that, oh, he's just kind of there.
The best thing about Topher Grace is like he's actually a really good editor, and he edited a fan version of he edited like the first two prequels together into a movie.
Huh.
Which was interesting. And he also did these really great sort of fan edit sort of Star Wars compilations. If you haven't seen it, I would definitely recommend it.
I'll check it out.
I think it's like Star Wars Always is what it's called. It'll get you very emotional, I'll just say that.
Oh,
probably.
Okay.
I definitely got emotional watching it. Yeah, so the other thing too, just to talk about, Cooper, one of the things Cooper figures out is that in this Tesseract, he can't change the past. He can't. So time, this isn't like time travel where like, you know, I go back in the past and I don't know, kill my grandfather, but I'm still alive because I've created an alternate timeline. There's one timeline. And so it cannot be changed. But in the future, he's able to basically, you know, give her the information to save humanity, which is then going to then create these four-dimensional beings in the future. And once he's relayed the information to her, his task is done. And we see the Tesseract kind of dissipating, as it were. And yeah, yeah, all this stuff was so cool. It was so cool the way they did all this stuff. We see it disappearing, and then he gets spit out somewhere like near Jupiter or something.
Yeah, that was kind of weird to me, only because I'm like, okay, if he gets sucked in the black hole and you can't get back out, how the fuck did they get him out? Or,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, they're that evolved to where they can harness the power of a black hole to get the one guy who went in it out. But like, it was fine. I suspended my reality long enough for it.
Yeah. Well, I guess one other thing I should mention is that, like, as the Tesseract is unfolding, Cooper sees Brand in the spaceship heading through the wormhole, and he's like kind of reaches out to her. So
yeah, exactly. The first handshake.
Yeah. So that's kind of like a cool, symmetrical thing. Time is relative, right?
Yep.
So then Cooper wakes up in this is another cool scene. It's a what it's called is a O'Neill cylinder space station. So it's a cylindrical space station habitat pretty much in space. And it's orbiting Saturn. And it's called Cooper Station, but it's named after the daughter Cooper, not him. Or whatever, or something like that, yeah.
I think it's named after Murphy, yeah.
Yeah, Murph is, I forget. Yeah. So this was okay. This was interesting. This was like a small thing, but this kind of got me because this was like a thing that I picked up. So they have a plaque dedicated to the Lazarus mission, and so it has the poem on it, right? The rage, and guess whose name is also inscribed on this thing?
Whose? I didn't notice.
The motherfucker, Dr. Mann.
Oh, okay. Oh, great.
Right?
Well,
how messed up is that?
It's so messed up because it's like, he probably he died trying to save humanity. Like, no, he didn't. He died because he was a moron. Like
he almost destroyed humanity. He's the worst of humanity.
Exactly. It's like, well, we don't know the whole story. We just know that he died trying to do something.
Yeah, it's a little. I mean, I don't know if they realized like how kind of that says a lot because like that's what would probably happen in real life.
Yeah, especially if you don't know, you weren't there, you just know that he went. It's not their fault. They didn't know he was a piece of shit.
Yeah, exactly. It's not their fault, but yeah, it's like, man, if only they knew. If only they knew how. And Dr. Brand too, like he's another piece of shit, lying,
exactly, trash
human. Probably set them back a long ways. Anyway, that was like a small note that kind of made me go, interesting. So Cooper, they give him a house. And it's like this dedication to the people that lived through the Dust Bowl era on Earth. Tars has survived too, and so he goes to repairing him. And they basically say like, Murph is coming to the station to meet with him. And then this is so interesting, right? Cooper meets with Murph, who's old, and like he sees like her whole family's there, and she's older than him.
Mm-hmm.
How crazy is that? Relativity for you.
No, seriously, it was very good. I wish they had more time. That's the only thing about that, about the ending. I know they were trying to wrap things up, which I get it, but the whole movie's been about them. You know what I mean? And they just have this one scene, and she's like, "Oh, you need to go get Brand." And I get it. She's old. She's dying. But it wasn't very satisfying to me. I was left kind of wanting more from both of them, because they're finally back together, and then he just leaves again, and it's just, oh, I have my family around me now. I'm okay. I'm not mad anymore. I'm like, okay, I'm glad you're not mad anymore. Yeah. But like,
those are also his family, right?
By the way? Exactly. Those are.
And he doesn't say anything to them. Like it'd be like, these are my grandchildren. I get to see them.
These are your great grandchildren. Like this is a really intense moment. You don't want to just stay with your daughter, at least until she maybe passes away. Like time is relative. Brant's going to be there. You know what I mean? And it just it made me a little sad that it was kind of just glossed over a little bit, and there wasn't more time between the two of them.
That definitely could have been played in a different way. That could have been more emotionally satisfying.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he says, you got to go find Amelia. She's on Edmund's planet by herself. Like you have to go find her. And then he hijacks a Ranger with Tars, and they're off on their next mission. And basically, the last thing we see is Brand on that planet by herself. And again, Edmund's he is dead.
Yep, he's been dead for a while, probably. And I think he goes and gets her, and they start a new colony there. But also, these beings are so great and intelligent and amazing and live in a 4-dimensional plane. Why didn't they just go get her? Is it supposed to be like this full circle thing, basically, where he has to be the one? Like they have to start anew together because they're the only two who can really relate to each other? Maybe?
Well, I think so. The 4D being thing, this gets into some. There's actually like a really long answer to that. The short answer is pretty much because of the way time works, and so that there's not some kind of weird loop of time or whatever. The beings have to like, they can't actively put a hand on the scale, I guess is the best way to put it, so that their occurrence can happen naturally. Otherwise, it becomes a paradox that basically would it wouldn't make sense anymore logically. So the beings can only intervene in a way that is limited.
Okay.
Pretty much. So that's why they just do that stuff with Cooper, so that he's able to save humanity and basically create them and nothing else.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Because actually the whole plot is constructed around that.
That's true.
There's another film I may see if we could talk about it at some point. It's called Sphere. It's a very similar type of setup.
Oh, I saw that years ago when I was a kid, and I had no idea what was going on.
It's a weird movie. Very, very weird. I liked it. I saw it as a kid, and I liked it a lot. It really worked for me. But I feel like for a lot of people, it didn't work. But it had this right level of kind of eeriness, but sci-fi-ness, but also kind of like this, where it's like trying to be hard sci-fi, where it's not trying to be fantastical and whimsical. It's trying to like approach a sci-fi question in a realistic way.
Okay.
And, again, like that movie, it's all about doctors and stuff and scientists or whatever. Yeah. So, you have to like really, Nolan was trying to be very intricate in how he set up the plot so that a paradox wasn't created, pretty much. Yeah. But so, yeah, that was the film. So what did you think? So did you think that the film was too long? Like, what were your thoughts on that?
Not necessarily. If they were trying to go like the true science route of it, I think it was an appropriate amount of time. If it was going to be, like you said, whimsical or fantastic or something like that, I feel like it would have been cut down to about an hour and a half, which is generally how long movies are. But it also wanted to really immerse you as well. You wanted to really be immersed in the story and the setting, the places they go. So I thought it was a decent runtime. It was a 2-hour movie I didn't mind sitting through. If the characters had been boring and uninteresting and just flat with no personality, I would have probably checked out of it, honestly.
So, if you were to compare this with other Nolan films in terms of like the characters, like how much would you say you connected with the characters in this film as opposed to the other films of his that you've seen?
Probably more so this and why do I keep forgetting the name? I mentioned it. You reminded me of the name earlier.
The Prestige.
The Prestige. God damn it! Why do I keep forgetting that? This and The Prestige, I think, were the most emotionally driven by character. By character more than story. Like, there's obviously still a mystery surrounding both of these films, and we want to find out what that is, but we care about the characters.
Yes.
Pardon me. Especially, the Christian Bale one is one we're supposed to be rooting for, because the Hugh Jackman one is just so ego-driven.
Mm-hmm. It's like Dr. Man.
Exactly. Like, why can't you just leave well enough alone and get the fuck out of here, you little piece of shit? Yeah. But I feel like this one was the better of the two as far as emotions go and the investment that we place in these characters, because you want him to get back to Murph. You really do. He's already lost so much time. And for her to save time waiting for him, she's been in cryogenic sleep the majority of her elder years. So it's I thought it was definitely the more emotional of the two that I really cared about these characters.
Cool. And I guess what was your favorite like sequence in this film? What really like was your takeaway where you're like, wow, that blew me away?
Well, there's 3 moments that really stand out to me. When they pass by Saturn, I loved that shot. Just like this giant and this tiny little speck, basically. That's what it is. We're just a little speck. The wormhole and the black hole, definitely. Like, the giant wave was pretty cool, but as far as like them being in space goes, like, I really loved those moments of the wormhole and the black hole for sure.
I totally agree with you there. I think the Tesseract stuff, when I first saw it like, me and my friends, I remember seeing it and we all had the same reaction, just like, blown away. I mean, in a film where you're constantly blown away by stuff, that blew us away even more. To like, it was just like, because at first you're like trying to wrap your head around like, what am I seeing? What's going on?
No, for sure. That was a good scene. I liked it. I love the idea though of like, okay, let's just go in the wormhole. Who cares? Let's just do it.
The wormhole is so cool. And just like, even when you're seeing like, there's a shot of them approaching it in their ship, and it's just like, wow. Cause like you see this like star spinning or something.
Yep. It's like this vortex. It is a horizon, you know, what's beyond the horizon.
Yeah, oh God, I love that. I love it. This is one of my absolute favorite films, like, of all time. Like, this is like what I love that film can do. You know, depict these things, it's like sending humans to places that we can only hope we could ever see in the future.
Yeah, and it's so beyond our lifetime, and it's the sad part of it. It's so bittersweet. It's so bittersweet because you just want to be there when it happens.
Yeah. This is basically the closest we can get, probably.
Yeah.
But it's so cool.
Through it. Yeah, it is very cool.
So cool. Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's it for our review. Did you have any kind of last words or thoughts that you want to share?
My only grievance with this is that I don't know if Gravity or this came first, but now we're just seeing a bunch of space movies, and now I feel like it's getting a little watered down. I feel like the genre is getting too saturated with too much. I feel like what made it special about movies like this was that there were so few and far between that now they're just pumping them out one after the other. And I liked Gravity. I enjoyed it. I think Interstellar is just, they take place in space, but they're very different stories. You know what I mean? So I try and get at that. I think Interstellar was better. I think it was, no pun intended, worlds better. It was just good. It was just so good.
Yeah, like you said, Interstellar is trying to be like the 2001. It's trying to be on that level. It's trying to throw out ideas at us that are like that. You know, make us, you know, like Star Trek, make us feel like we want to, you know, go better, go farther, pursue bigger things, and like break out of these small kind of, you know, the global conflicts, and, you know, or the I don't know, the kind of somewhat irrelevant things, and think about humanity in the scope of the universe, how big the universe is, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just what I really like about this film. I really appreciate that Christopher Nolan uses because there's every generation, there's like a handful of guys who get the ability to do stuff like this, right? And I really appreciate that he used that to create something like this, you know?
Exactly. And based in some truth of science, you know what I mean? Based in like, yeah, it's theory and things like that, but this is how we can try and portray those theories on the big screen too, which I really like, because I love stuff like that. I really do.
Yeah, for sure. Same here. Okay, well, so I was thinking to do a film similar to this, maybe next week we could talk about the film Contact.
Oh my God, I loved that movie growing up. Again, it was one of those films I didn't entirely understand what was going on, but I can definitely say that it's one of those films that really, because there's different types of sci-fi, you know what I mean? Like There's Star Trek, there's Star Wars, and then there's this type of sci-fi with the real little, like the precursors to all of the other things that came before. And even though, you know, Contact came after Star Trek, it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. It's like it's a different way of portraying contact and life and things like that. And I remember it really had a huge impact on me. And I remember so many visual things about that movie. And I wanted to be Jodie Foster so bad, but I'm not smart enough to do these things. I know my limits. If I really wanted to be that, I would have tried. But I think it's good to know your limits sometimes and what you're good at, know what you're good at. But it hooked me on such an emotional level, on such a wonder level. And I love that movie. So I'm totally game for watching that.
Yeah. That'll be exciting. Cause I'll talk about it when we get into the review, but I had an interesting relationship with that film as a kid. But like you said, this is trying to be Interstellar and stuff like Contact and 2001. It's trying to be hard sci-fi, right?
Yeah, and that's where actually I think Star Trek: The Motion Picture shot itself in the foot because it hadn't been hard sci-fi at that point. It had been the whimsy, it had been the hokey, it had been the monster of the week for so long, and that's obviously not me knocking Star Trek because I love it.
Mm-hmm.
But it took a hard turn trying to be that hard sci-fi, and it doesn't work when you try and rewrite the biology of a franchise like that. You either have to start from the beginning as the hard sci-fi, or you start from the beginning as Star Trek sci-fi. And there's nothing wrong with either one, but I think that's where Star Trek: The Motion Picture shot itself in the foot, is that I think people were expecting the whimsy, and it was just, no, this is where we're going. This is what Beecher is. This is all this other stuff. It's God. It's not God, but it's not an alien. What is it? It's a conscious vortex of craziness, basically. And I think both genres within the genre of sci-fi have their place, and I enjoy both of them very, very much. I really love movies like Contact and Interstellar because I feel like we know people like that. We can relate to them on a very personal level.
Yeah, because like, you know, you think about the character, like, again, it's very similar characters in Interstellar, right? It's a doctor, it's a astronaut, it's a scientist, it's these people who spend their life pursuing knowledge. And, you know, there's something about that passion that people have about pursuing knowledge, just kind of infectious at times, right?
It is. You want to be there, you want to join them, you want to share in that excitement.
Yeah. So that'll be for next week or whenever. So that'll be a very exciting thing to talk about. So yeah. So until then, thanks a lot, everyone. And, you know, may the force be with you.
Live long and prosper.